Good morning to you, my loves. Very glad to be setting aside this time to spend with you this morning, as we usually do. I think that my new tea time day is probably going to be Friday. It's been going really great in terms of keeping up with my blog amidst the craziness of this semester and as well as this podcast. But I think that what's going to work best for me, just because the podcast production end of things, if you will. It's not really a big deal, but it just takes me a little bit longer than my usual posts. So I think I'll probably be still recording them on Thursday, but probably putting them out on Friday, which I used to put them out on Friday. I've put them out on Friday quite a few times in the past, so I don't think that's a big change for you. So I think that's the model we're going to be moving to. And it's been working. And this new sort of structure that I've formed for myself with the blog, whereby I've been writing a little bit more frequently, but my posts have been shorter. So I'll just, I'll have 10 or 15 minutes during my lunch, and I will just write whatever I can in that amount of time and publish it. It has been going really well. It has been so cathartic for me. It's been very satisfying to feel that I've been able to keep up with something like that, something that's meaningful to me, and I've been really happy with it. You'll notice that I don't always have an image to include with the posts anymore because I'm prioritizing, and to me it's more important to write to you, to have that cathartic experience, to get my thoughts out, and also to share with you and have that community feeling, sharing that makes my days so much brighter. That's more important than making the post look nice. So hopefully that's still working for you too. But I'm just doing whatever I can to conserve the time and just get the content out, because I feel like that's what's most important. So that's kind of housekeeping for this morning. Our topic for today is sort of like a heavy theological theme, I guess. I guess I would characterize it as accepting God's will / accepting that there's sometimes things in life that we cannot control. And we just have to do our best to make our way around those things since we can't change them. And I don't want to talk about teaching today because I've been talking about that a lot. It's been dominating my life and my thoughts, so that's why I've been talking about it a lot. But I just don't want to focus on that today because it's all very exhausting. I'm back to the grind. I will be for 3 more weeks after this, and we can just sum it up by saying it's very difficult. I'm finding the monotony of teaching the same thing so many times, 15, 16 times in a week. And just the apathy of the students. Some of my students have been fantastic, but other sections, the dynamic is totally different, and there's just so much apathy and disinterest and lack of caring, lack of participation, despite me practically standing on my head doing acrobatics, trying to engage them. I'm a very enthusiastic and animated lecturer, and I'm trying to get them to participate with me. And it just depends on the group. It's not always easy, and it's getting me down. But I don't want to focus on that today. Like, that's all going on. I'm just dealing with it as best I can, taking it one class at a time. I've got a long stretch here, a lot of classes coming up, so I'm not projecting any further in the future than one day at a time, and really one class at a time. So that's all there. That's all there. But I wanted to focus a little bit more broadly. So, other things that are going on in my life right now that I've had to just accept, right? I can't change it right now. So I really do enjoy writing. Does Tiffany have any writing time right now? You can imagine the answer before I provide it for you. No, I haven't been able to write on my larger writing project since mid-August, before the semester started. And I had been hoping to sneak some in here and there, especially on the weeks where, like these 2 that just passed, where we weren't doing in-person instruction, where the students were working on online modules. Didn't happen. I had to accept that I can't change that. I had too many other things to do, and those things needed to be done. They are what I need to, what everybody on my team needs to do right now. All of the grading, all of the responding to students, all of the course planning and preparation. It's got to get done. So therefore, the writing had to take a back seat. It was hard to accept that, and I miss it because writing is a creative outlet for me. But I wrote to the person that I'm working with on this larger writing project, and the deadline was, somewhat flexible. And I had told her I was hoping to have it done like around Lent. And I just let her know. I said, I'm not going to be able to do that. And it felt good to be able to just like be upfront about that and not harbor all of these anxieties about, well, I need to be doing more because I need to get this done. I need to have this done by Lent. And I was just putting all this pressure on myself. And I can't control the fact that my job is requiring these other things of me right now. So I have to let that go. So I just, told her this is what's going on. I'm teaching all these classes, 15, and it's been very difficult and I haven't had any time. And so I'm going to have some writing time over the winter break. We have a really nice winter break because there's a winter term here. And I don't think I will have to teach. Let's keep our fingers crossed on that one, my friends. There are classes here over the winter term, but they're mostly online. So I think it should be okay. So I'll have some time then. And there's also spring break here. I don't know though, because I may have, coursework to do, prep planning and stuff to do then too. We'll see. But there's also the summer. That is the major time in being an academic librarian when you can write and work on other projects is the summer. So I told her I'm going to need part of, in our summer session, our spring semester wraps up here in May. So, it's a long summer. And so I'll have plenty of time in May and June. So we're looking at more of like a July 1 type of a deadline. Yeah, it might even be a little past then, since I'm really just going to have like December, January, and then May, June. We'll see if that's enough to write an entire book. So, excluding the one chapter I already have done that I'm sure we'll need some revisions. So that's kind of where we're at with that. And, she wrote back, was like, that's totally fine. It's something that, is like a rolling project where there's multiple installments. And so everybody's got different deadlines and people are going well into 2017. So it's okay. So that made me feel better. It's hard to not have that as part of my life right now, but it's what needs to be. So there's that. The other thing, and I mentioned this, I think, a couple of weeks ago, is Plans Not Scripted, my podcast with Christina, my monthly podcast that I really, really enjoy and love. Well, we were experiencing some technical difficulties, and I had told you all about that. And we managed to squeeze in an episode in September that did not record properly. There was a problem with the file after we were finished that I was not able to recover it from. So that was lost. And it was really an ordeal for us both to have the same hour free. Yeah. And so after that, well, let's try again next week. But, and we couldn't, we really couldn't. It's not one of those times where you feel like you're making up excuses. Like it was just not possible. Of course, we each have hours free here and there, but they were never at the same time. And so we have had to accept that we are sort of against our will on hiatus right now. So in some good news with regards to Plan Not Scripted, I just got an email yesterday from Pamela, my Skype recording software program that had been part of our technical difficulties for several months, that was no longer working with the updated version of Skype. And they emailed me that they have fixed it. So I've got to download something and, do what have yous to it that they have included instructions for that I haven't done yet. But I have that saved in my inbox and we'll be able to use that again when we're able to record. And that created a much better quality audio file. I've been struggling a little bit for the past couple of months with a free Skype recording software that I didn't like quite as well. It was working, but it required a little bit more work on my end, and I don't think it sounded as good. So this is good news. I don't know when we're going to be able to record it again. It's possible that we might be able to do it at the end of October. I've got an online week, the week of the 24th of October. So we will see. We'll do what we can. But if that doesn't happen, then we'll be going into November. My time off in November will be surrounding Thanksgiving. And of course, that has its own set of personal busyness. So I don't know if it'll happen then. But we're going to do what we can. I feel hopeful, though, You know, it's one of those things I have to accept. We've both had to accept, Christina and I, that right now, it's like she had been putting season 1, episode whatever on there, and I was like, I wonder why she's doing that. Because I would have just labeled them like episode 1, episode 2, but it was like, it's fine. Yeah, it was fine with me. She was taking care of the show notes and all that. Well, now I'm so grateful she did that. Because, like, yeah, that was season 1. When we come back, it'll be season 2. Sometimes there are seasons in life where you have to just take a break away. And it's hard to accept that because I fear that we'll lose listeners. But, you know, I think that people who listen to our show are probably going through a similar stage in life as us, and they understand. It's, yeah. So we will try to be back when we can. I know we will at some point. It's just a matter of when. But I'm glad that we will have Pamela to work with when that's all said and done. And I just feel like God was just like leading us in a direction. So, you know, we were talking about in the ill-fated show we recorded this month in September, we were talking about stress. And maybe God wants us to focus on something else. So, you know, I mean, I think it was a great show. I'm sorry that, you know, we all won't be able to listen to it again. But I just feel like, okay, well, there's something else planned. And when we're able to record again, and when that goes successfully, that's going to be what God had in mind for us to talk about and for us all to share together. So, yeah, we'll keep you posted. We should have sent out, I'm sure, something on the email list that we have. Oh my gosh, my friends. I can hardly remember, like, to get dressed in the morning. It has been so epically difficult for me to keep my mind focused on any one thing because I've just got so many things bouncing around in my head right now. It has been really hard. And so neither of us have thought or remembered to do that at a time in which we are able to go do that. So it hasn't happened. We'll get there. I just try to tell myself that, you know, sometimes you have to see the forest for the trees. People don't care that much, you know. I think most of the people that listen to us follow us on Twitter, and I tweeted about it, and so I'm sure most people saw that, or people are listening to this. It's going to be okay. It's not that big a deal. So there's that. I was driving in this morning, rainy day here in Western New York. It looks much more like fall. And I was just a little down about my work day. Keeping it real. I'm not looking forward to what I have to do today, which is teach the same thing for like the 10th, 11th, and 12th time, and try to get students engaged in the same thing that I'm bored by. And I was listening to Father Roderick on the break, and you know, I love Father Roderick, and this was his 1,000th episode of the break. He used to have a daily podcast, so that's how they kind of built up, and now he's been weekly for some time, but he amassed so many at the beginning. He was in Rome, which is where his podcast began, and his podcast began when John Paul II passed away. Oh my goodness. So it brought back so many memories for me because I started listening to him not right then, maybe a year or so later. It was 2006 or 2007, I think, but I wish I could remember more. But I started listening to him. I started listening to Catholic Weekend. And so that's when I got to know Captain Jeff, Maria Johnson, Steve Nelson. Those were the 3 that were on that show at that time. And between them and Father Roderick, that's what brought SQPN really into my life in a larger way. And I also was listening to Catholic in a Small Town with Mac and Catherine Barron. And that time, I remember when I started listening to all those shows. But when Father mentioned, you know, the death of John Paul II in the spring of 2005, it brought me right back. I was pregnant with Henry in the spring of 2005. And it was just, I remember that time so well. We were just announcing the pregnancy with Henry. That was in April of 2005. He was born in November. And it was such an emotional time for me because John Paul II is the Pope that I have the most memories of, that I felt most bonded to. It's not that I don't love our current Pope or Benedict XVI, because I do, but there was something different for me with John Paul II. He was my guy. And so it was a very emotional thing when he passed away. And so Father was describing when he was in Rome and all of this was happening and how that inspired him to start recording so that people could feel a part of it. And that is what podcasting is all about, is feeling a part of something larger in a sense. Well, for him, certainly. This show, no, nothing larger than daily life. But being at, like for him, being in Rome at the scene of when John Paul II was passing away, or when Pope Francis was elected, that makes you feel a part of that event. And it was just bringing that time back for me, and thinking about all the emotions I was feeling, and as a new wife, and soon to be mother. And that was a pivotal time in the church and for so many lives. And because of Father Roderick, so much changed in the lives of so many people, and because of his shows and what he started doing. And I mean, the amount of gratitude that I feel for that is I can't even begin to express. Like when I was at CNMC last year and 2 years before that, all the people that I met there, the people that I mentioned, I met all of those people actually. Father Roderick and Mac and Catherine and Captain Jeff and Maria and Steve and so many more. And it is so incredibly meaningful to me, that community. I've met so many other people who are followers of SQPN. I've met so many of you, maybe not quite in person yet, some of you in person, many of you that I feel very close to that I have never met in real life. But it's because of Father Roderick. Because he started podcasting, I got interested in podcasting, and then by extension, social media and blogging. And that's how I met everybody. And sorry, that was my keys. That has changed my life. And so when he was, this was a milestone episode for him and talking about all these things, it just made me realize that even despite like all these things that I've just been talking about, that are just challenges in our day-to-day lives, things that we have to accept that we can't control or change right now, there's just such a greater reality out there that is so marvelous and wonderful and warm and embracing. And it made me really happy. And then he was mentioning at the end of his show, and I'll link to it, I'm like, I know that I'm like going back to my childhood speech classes. I'm having trouble saying this 1000th episode. So he was saying at the end that he had the special announcement, and he's going to be going on a pilgrimage next September that's going to be sponsored for anybody to join to Rome. And I was like, oh, I wish I could go, because the CNMCs were just unbelievably meaningful to me. And that's like, okay, Boston, Atlanta, very doable. Rome, it's not going to be doable for me. It's financially, and the time. Oh, because I'd have to be, that would be much longer than a long weekend. I'm certain it would be probably a week or so, more, maybe even longer. And of course, that's our high teaching time. I wouldn't be able to go for so many reasons. I've never traveled abroad. I don't have a passport. I've never flown over the ocean. This would be a gigantic undertaking for me. And it's not going to happen in a year. It made me sad. It's like, oh, I wish I could be a part of that. This is another thing that I can't control. I'm not going to be able to make that happen. But there are many, many other things in my life that, that made me think, kind of seize the day, smaller things. But I'll be able to participate via Father Roderick's podcasts and the vlogs I know he's going to do all year leading up to that. He's going to be walking the Camino. I'm so looking forward to participating with him in that. When this pilgrimage comes, I'll feel like a part of that via his show. And even just teeny tiny little things like the fact that I have this crazy day today, and I have dance tomorrow, and I have felt a little bit more distanced from dance after our busy performance season this summer, because I needed a break. It was like we did a lot of performing and I needed a break, and we had a 2-week recess because Claire was on vacation. And so she closed the studio for 2 weeks, and it was very needed. And now we're back, but I was sick 1 week, and then we've only had a couple of classes since I was sick and the studio reopened. And it's just like I feel kind of like they started a new choreography when I wasn't there, and I feel sort of like I'm like playing catch up. And Claire has a lot of trust in us these days, and she's teaching us a new choreography really, really quickly. And I missed the first week, so I'm just I'm having a hard time like remembering it all and sort of catching up to where we are. And so we have a video and class is tomorrow. I haven't had time to watch the video. And I was like, oh, I can't stand feeling so rushed and chaotic all the time. And Mike said to me last night, he's like, well, tonight, so tomorrow night, which we were speaking last night, so was coming up tonight. So, I have rehearsal and so does Henry. Because him and Henry are both in community theater plays coming up. And so you'll have that after you put Anne to bed, you'll have the house to yourself. And, why don't you, you can just take the entire evening and dance and practice. It's like, oh, I do feel like a little surge. I was talking to Mackenzie from my troop this week about something dance related, and that made me feel a little inspired. And now tonight I can have all this time to watch the video and practice. That's a little creativity coming back into my life, and that's a good feeling. And just the thought that I'll have that time set aside later makes me feel so much happier and able to take on the Herculean emotional task I'm about to take on. And yeah, it's the little things. And so I'm so grateful that I have those little things, that I have my husband, and that I have all of you, that I'm always a part of something else, because I feel like we all share our lives together. And so I'm going to keep very happily chatting with you all on social media, chatting with you in the comments on this blog, listening to my podcasts, and feeling a part of our larger, the global church. It is a wonderful and beautiful thing, and I'm so, so grateful for it. So I've gone over 20 minutes, so I'm going to wrap up. But this was a really great talk this morning. I feel a lot better, and I hope you do too. So I would love to hear from you. Write in on your thoughts on accepting that sometimes you can't change things in your daily life, and maybe podcasting, Father Roderick, SQPN, anything that you want to write in about, I'd love to hear. I very much look forward to seeing you all next week. I'll talk to you then. Bye.